Hey, are you here? Of course you are. It's the Paul Leslie Hour, episode number 1080, and this is the third appearance of Richard Skipper, the Celebrator of Celebrators. Richard Skipper's a skilled entertainer, host, interviewer, a proud celebrator of the performing arts, and he joins Paul today for a personal interview. But real quick, good people, we would love it if you'd help keep this show going, or maybe you'd like to buy Paul a tea or coffee. Just pull on over to the www.thepaulleslie.com/support, and we thank you. And you know what would also mean a whole lot? It would be great if you could tell a friend or family member all about this episode. Call them on the phone. And with that, it is time for Dear Richard Skipper.
Tap your troubles away. Hello, Richard.
We finally see each other face to face.
That's right. That's right.
I mean, this should be called the Tenacity Show.
Well, technology has its way of showing up every now and then.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
How are you?
I'm doing okay. How about you?
I'm doing great now that I'm here.
Well, I always like to say all is well that ends well.
Mm-hmm.
Now, Richard Skipper is a third-time guest on this show, but the very first time he is coming on the show in living color.
That's right.
And I think that you should be seen. So thank you so much for coming on here.
Well, thank you for your patience today.
Well, I'm glad that you're here. And there's a number of things I want to touch on, but there's something coming up in the near and seeable future, August 22nd, which happens to be a Friday, at the Laurie Beachman Theater. Everything you always wanted to know about Richard Skipper, but were afraid to ask.
That's right. That's right. But before I do that, I'm actually leaving on the 1st of August. I'm going to be in Provincetown. This will be my third consecutive year there. Second time at the Art House, where I also performed last year, under new management, Richie Pugh. So a shout out to him, and Rainbow Entertainment. But on the 4th, I will be appearing in the show that you just mentioned, Everything You Always Wanted to Know about Richard Skipper, but were afraid to ask. And then the next night, I have a celebration of the history of Hello Dolly. And I'll be doing that as well.
Lots and lots of stuff on the calendar. So, Richard, within reason, may I ask you anything?
Absolutely. That's the whole purpose of my show.
Well, that's an appealing notion to me. Something that I feel about you is that you are ceaseless. You just keep going. You seem to be a person with great purpose, which is something that I admire. Richard, what makes you so ceaseless? What gives you this kind of energy?
Well, this may sound on one level like a morbid response to your question, but on the other hand, I've always had a heightened sense of how fragile our lives are. I spend, I walk the walk and I talk the talk. Those who see my shows, whether it be my podcast or my live shows, I end every show by asking everyone to reach out to someone they haven't spoken to in a while. For example, and believe it or not, you're going to say this is too woo-woo for your audience, but I base it on my numerology chart. And today for me is considered a 7-day. So on a 7-day, I would tell everyone to reach out to that 7th name in your address book and just go to your address book, the 7th name that pops up, reach out with a phone call. Not an email message, not a text message, not a private inbox message, a phone call. Now, one of the things that has happened with me this year is I made a decision to leave social media. I left Facebook and Instagram at the end of February, but I've made a point of every day reaching out to 3 people in my database that I haven't spoken to in a while. Paul, I can't begin to tell you how many of those names are no longer with us. I have been clearing out my database. We have lost this absolute reason to connect with one another. I don't know how old you are, but I think I'm older. And I grew up at a time where people dropped in to say hello to each other. Neighbors were checking in on each other. You made phone calls to check on people. And you didn't always, there wasn't the instant gratification of getting that person instantly. You got a dial tone, or they would not be at home and they didn't have an answering machine. So we've reached this point where, because of devices like this, everyone is connected to this 24/7. Everyone feels that they can connect with everybody. But the bottom line is, I was watching The View yesterday morning, and Whoopi Goldberg was talking about Malcolm Warner, who we just lost, and at 54 in a tragic drowning accident. None of us are promised tomorrow. None of us are promised that we're going to be able to reach out to that person the next day. And so as a result, I have this intense awareness of how important every single day is. I begin every day when I sit down at my computer asking how I can be of service to the people that I come in contact with that day. And it's not just about me. When I'm doing a show, a live show, for example, my shows are not about me. They are always about the audience. The audience is always the star of the evening. So I have crafted these shows, and what separates me from a lot of people in this industry is I'm unscripted. I love to just be on stage, take questions from the audience, and see where they take me. And my Everything You Always Want to Know show, for example, everyone fills out question cards before the show starts. And then I randomly pull the question cards out the show. I never know what is going to come up. I don't look at these before the show starts. So any show is about the people that I've worked with, the places I've been, the life lessons I've learned, and all of that coming together. But I do believe in the fragility of life, and how if we don't take those chances, if we don't say, this is what I want and I'm going to go after it, it ain't going to happen. And a lot of people, because everyone is so caught up in their lives, especially now, that people are not reaching out the way that they used to do. I'll talk to my friends and they'll say, well, I really want to be a part of this project. And I said, have you reached out to them and let them know? Because, I mean, the worst thing that they're going to say is no. And if they say no, it has nothing to do with you, because they've already made up their mind with what they want long before you reached out to them to say, I want to be a part of this.
It's so interesting that we're coming together, because right now it's almost like I do feel, you said woo-woo, but a focus this year for me has been reaching out. And also there's a friend of the show who's younger than both of us, Robert from the Palmetto State, where you're originally from.
My home state, yes.
Right. And Robert tells me all the time, and some people would think this is morbid, but it's not. To me, for some reason, it's empowering. He says, Paul, you'll die someday. And some people would think, well, that's a scary thing to say. But I've reframed that to, okay, if you want to do it, you got to get it done, because that's true of all of us.
I always say that every single person that you've ever encountered on this planet are in one or two categories. Either they've died or they're going to die. There's no other way about it. And, and it used to be something that frightened me. I was really afraid of that day happening. And God, if you're listening right now, I don't want it to happen anytime soon, because I still feel that I have a lot to do. But the bottom line is, if it does happen sooner rather than later, I look at a person's life. I look at Ozzy Osbourne, who we just lost, and the contributions that he made to the music world. Whether you're a fan of that music or not is not the point. The fact was, he came to this planet, he made an impact, but that impact will live long beyond what he did on this planet. And I'm always reminded of the film It's a Wonderful Life. Just that, thinking about where we all fit in this fabric of life. And if we weren't around, how things would have been differently for your friends, your family, your neighbors. Think about it, because every single person on this planet has a purpose. And not to be political, and I'm not going to go there, but regardless of what side you're on, we have to celebrate the humanity of every single person on this planet. They think differently than you do. They think differently because that's what they've been taught to believe. We are all a product of everything that's brought us to this moment. And we need to start celebrating each other instead of tearing each other apart.
Well, you are a celebrator. That's a part of your business card. You're an interviewer, an entertainer, a host. But when I think of the word celebrates, I think of Richard Skipper. I really do. And you interview people while also having this way of paying real tribute to them. You just mentioned the Melissa Manchester interview, which was really fantastic. I watched that one.
Thank you.
And I'm curious, where do you attribute the source of learning this skill to interview people? How did you learn to do this?
I want to go back, and get to that point. I want to start with my mentor when I was a kid growing up in South Carolina. I had a teacher, but I've talked about her with you before.
Yes.
I think Miss Epps. And Miss Epps instilled in me that every person that has come before me has paved the way for me to be able to do what I do. And so to celebrate them. So I believe I like to refer to celebrating a person's body of worth instead of their body of work. I'm not interested in gossip. I'm not interested in torrid stories. I'm interested in what makes that person tick. How did they get from point A to point B and beyond? What makes them exciting to watch? And everybody, whether you think you do or not, has that spark in us. And I'm genuinely interested in listening to the stories that these people have to tell. And I listen to them. I don't prepare my questions in advance. I know I've done my research, but when I sit down, my questions come out of the story that we're telling.
So you're very much in the moment from that perspective.
And on stage as well. I'm a very in the moment artist. I've had musical directors that I've worked with who have chastised me out of the show, after the show, because I want to do this song at this point instead of the song that we rehearsed at this point. Because if I feel that this song fits into this narrative better than where we had originally positioned it, that's what I want to do. So now, it's a lot easier because everything's on an iPad when they're playing my shows. But in the old days, they would be flipping through music. So I'm a very in the moment artist on stage.
Well, what about before the show? I know that you don't know what's going to, you can't predict what someone's going to write on the card, but do you have a tradition before you take the stage, a pre-show ritual?
And I have a very strange, unusual ritual.
Okay.
I try to imagine the day that the audience has had prior to walking in to see my show. I try to imagine them dealing with gas and tolls and parking and dinner before the show. For example, my show's in Province Center at 8:30. Chances are that my audiences have had dinner before coming to this. Did they have a great experience? Was the food good? Are they feeling uncomfortable because of something they ate? All of those things, I try to imagine that as a collective, what that experience has been like for the audience before they've come in. But what I do is I put the focus on them again, instead about me, instead of how I'm feeling and the butterflies and do I have an audience out there? Are they in a good mood? What are these things going on? And by doing that, I take the energy outside of myself and I place it once again on the audience. And it's just something that I think about before I even walk through the door to sing that first song.
What about on the days that you don't have a performance? Do you have a morning routine?
I do have a morning routine. I get up every morning. I do like to have coffee, but I've done a lot of research, and it's best for everyone watching out there that you start the day with water instead of drinking coffee, because coffee will dehydrate you, especially in the summer. So start the day. A lot of people in the summer pass out early in the morning because they go immediately to that cup of coffee. So I drink my water. I sit down at my desk. I have an office in my house, as you can see around me, everything. But when I come into my office, I sit down and I absolutely say this every morning, as I just said a moment ago. How can I be of service to everyone I come in contact with today? And then I go into my emails and I go through to see if there are emails that came in overnight, because I shut down, believe it or not. When my husband comes home, before I sit down I shut my phone off, I close the door, and I shut down for the night. And if anyone needs to get me, they've got my landline number and they can get in touch with me that way. But when I sit down in the morning, I check the emails of those who have reached out during the night that I need to respond to right away. And then I write a morning blog every morning. And then I post the blog on my website, and then I post it on LinkedIn. I am there, not on any of the Meta platforms. And my day is spent, I say that I spend 95% of my day pursuing work. And once I get the work, that other 5% of my time is spent pursuing an audience. It's a constant, it's a daily routine. Once I go away, like next week with me going to Provincetown, I'm doing 2 shows while I'm in Provincetown, but I'm going for a week. I'm going to decompress and have a vacation.
Excellent.
Hey, here it is in the middle of this episode, the Paul Leslie Hour. We're going to take just a quick moment to ask a favor. Won't you subscribe to Paul's YouTube channel? I'm sure if you do, you will be one happy person. And above all else, following Paul on X, formerly known as Twitter, at the Paul Leslie. And remember to say hi to Paul. Now, back to the show.
What have you gained by giving up Meta, which would be Facebook and Instagram? What did you get in exchange?
Oh, how much time do we have? I mean, the first thing that I would say that I've gained a clarity and a focus. And let me back up for a moment as to why I chose to leave Meta. I was performing in Palm Springs back in January. And again, being there for a week, I've got a lot of friends in Palm Springs. So breakfast, just going out for breakfast, going out for lunch, going out for dinner, and leaving my phone in my hotel room, believe it or not, and not checking my phone every few minutes to see what's going on. I took the apps off my phone, first of all, so I would not be checking Facebook and Instagram. We have this false sense of connection. I could post, I am going to appear on the Paul Leslie Show this afternoon on Facebook, and no reflection on you or even a reflection on me. I'm lucky if 7 people respond.
Right.
And I'm talking about engagement. I'm not talking about hitting the like button, hitting the share button. I've had people share content that they don't even know what they're sharing. And I'll give you an example. Last week, when Connie Francis passed away, I posted an interview that I did with her. And someone posted how wonderful that Richard Skipper is appearing on the Connie Francis show. And I went, go back and read the blog.
Right.
Because they didn't even read it. And then I guess they read probably the first few lines and then changed it to how wonderful that Connie Francis is appearing on Richard Skipper's show. And I wrote back and said, do you know who Connie Francis is? And they sent me a Wikipedia page. I mean, people are not even reading content that they're sharing anymore. So I could post that I'm appearing on your show, and it would be wonderful if people would say, oh, I listened to the Paul Leslie Show, or I've never heard of Paul Leslie before. How do I find out about this show? That's engagement.
Right.
That's taking an interest beyond just the like button or an emoji. And the flip side of that is I could post, I'm having zucchini soup for dinner tonight, and 500 people respond to that. So, what's this reason that people need to post what they're having for dinner? I went to a great exhibit the other night at the Botanical Gardens. And again, I didn't have my phone taking pictures of everything. I enjoyed the moment of being there. And that's also what it's about. When I made the decision to leave Instagram and Facebook, my reason for doing that is because I wanted a real connection with the people in my life. So by leaving that, I have a focus that is more intense than anything prior. I was on Facebook for 14 years. And those years go by fast. And then we don't, and so I don't think, and I've been, like I said, I've been calling people and I'm hearing, oh my God, Richard Skipper, because these are people that I haven't spoken to in a few years. And so it is really imperative that we as human beings get back to connecting with people on a truly personal basis, as opposed to this superficiality of Facebook. And I was talking to a friend of mine this morning, and she got upset by something she misconstrued on Facebook. And I said, what you're describing to me is exactly why I left. And, after we talked, she realized that she had misinterpreted something that someone had written. But, when I was on Facebook, and are you on Facebook, Paul?
No, not really. No, I like you, I deleted my personal account. I still have a page that I go in and, I probably shouldn't say this, but usually when I log in, I regret it.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know about you, But for me personally, that first post that I see in the morning could could set the tone for my entire day.
It could.
If it was positive, that's something great to see. And you get these endorphins that fill you up with ecstasy and fulfillment. But if you see something that's negative or something, that's also going to set the tone for your day. So I don't know what it is that, some people sleep with this by their bed.
Right.
And a lot of people, I would venture to say that at least 75% or more, and I'm sure it's more, of the people that are listening to the show don't even turn their notifications off.
Right.
To go to bed at night. So every time the phone does a ding, they grab the phone to see what they may be missing. And so I don't miss any of it. I mean, I've had no regrets since walking away from it.
It's Pavlovian, to say the least.
Yes.
Richard, who do you think is the best entertainer that's still out there doing it today?
Best entertainer, Hugh Jackman. I think really, he is selling out here in New York. Barry Manilow is still doing it, but he's slowing down. And Barry Manilow said recently in an interview that he's the last of that breed. I came to New York in 1979, and I've been lucky that I've seen Liza Minnelli in concert and Shirley Bassey in concert. And I had tickets to see Frank Sinatra, and unfortunately he got ill the day that I had the tickets to see him. And Carol, and I saw Vic Damone in concert. And again, these were entertainers. These were people, it wasn't about the spectacle of the lights and the sound and everything else that are important, I guess, when you're doing that kind of a show. But if you take all that stuff away, are these artists able to touch your heart and soul the same way? And there are very few of that type of entertainers still around. So I would say, as far as male entertainers, I would put Hugh Jackman at the top of the list. And as far as female entertainers, Lady Gaga, I think she is a phenomenal. Cher, God bless her, is still doing it. Cher does a phenomenal concert. Diana Ross, I've seen so many times in concert. I'm very old school, and going to concerts are fewer and far between because we don't see that kind of artist anymore. And that's what I want to see.
Very interesting stuff here. Have you ever been in awe of anyone?
Yes, I'm in awe of you. No, yes, all the time. I'm in awe. I went to see, I would call him a young kid who was really getting his toes into cabaret on Sunday night. I was in awe of him. I mean, when I see talent, I love being on stage. I think that comes through. But I also love to be an audience member. And when I'm sitting in a room with a group of people that are celebrating that artist on stage, and we're all there, that puts me in awe. I was in awe, as you know, of Carol Channing, who was a dear friend of mine. There's so many people, and not just entertainers. Maya Angelou was someone that I was very much in awe of. And I was invited to a wedding once, and they set me at the table, and I was seated next to Toni Morrison. And I mean, I was like a kid. I was so, first of all, I think she was a brilliant writer. And the fact that I was seated next to her, and I said, Miss Morrison, I am such a fan of your work. And she was blown away by that because she says, I'm not recognized that often. So it was great. But yes, I'm in awe of people on a daily basis. And I'm in awe of, and awe, goes both ways. I see things that are happening in the world right now, and I'm in awe, and I don't mean in a positive way. I can't believe that they just said this, or that they just did that, or that they're, acting in this way. And again, that's on both sides of the aisle.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. How did you come up with this intriguing idea of the show? Everything you always wanted to know about Richard Skipper, but were afraid to ask. Where did that come from?
Well, a lot of people, I've got so many stories of the people that I've worked with over the years. And people would always say, I would tell these stories at parties and things like this. And people were, you've got so many stories, you should put them on stage. And I kept saying, well, which stories do I tell? And, where do I put the focus and everything? And so I was asked to do a show in March of this year. And I had this idea rolling around the back of my head. So I thought I'd just try this out, see how it would go. And the audience response was great. I did the show in May. That show sold out, great reviews. And that led to me being asked back to do the show that's coming up on August 22nd. It's going to be very interesting to take this show because in New York, obviously, they've got a fan base and people who know me hear it, but taking it to Provincetown, and it's going to be interesting to see how this plays over. If someone doesn't know who Richard Skipper is, it says on my posters and everything, Google me, look me up. The pictures are there. The stories are there. The interviews are there. The reviews are there. And hopefully that will open the doors for the questions that people want to ask me about certain artists. Because, and I'm sure it's the same thing with you, Paul, I'm sure you have developed relationships and friendships way beyond what we see on camera. And you've got stories to tell as well.
Definitely. Yes.
I say at the beginning of my show, I've always heard that if you don't tell your story, someone else will tell it for you. And there's also the expression that we have, what we present to the world is our director's cut. In other words, the version of ourselves that we want the world to see. And everybody is doing that. And even in my show, where I don't know what that first question card is going to be when I pull that card up, but I never know what direction that's going to take me in. But even when I'm asked those questions, I have control over the information I want to put out there. I'm not going to trash anyone on stage because that's not my style. I'm not going to tell, as I said earlier, any salacious stories about people. My brand is celebrating. And so I will celebrate these people and the contributions that they've made to my life.
Wonderful. Now, Richard, it's been quite a number of years since you moved to New York.
46 years ago next week.
46 years next week. Okay. If you could somehow magically have gone back to the young Richard Skipper who was leaving home, going to New York, and you could give him any piece of advice where you put your hands on his shoulder and says, listen to me. You must listen. What would you say?
Take more chances. And that's taken as I've gotten older. George Bernard Shaw said, youth is wasted on the young. And it's true. And, we go through life, we're afraid. What is this person thinking of me? How is this person? That person's not going to be interested in me. I'll tell you something that drives me. It's a pet peeve of mine. When I say, for example, call the seventh name in your address book and invite them to join you on August 22nd at the Laurie Beachman Theater. And they'll go, well, I already know who that seventh name is, and they're not going to be interested. How do you know that they're not going to be interested? Or even, I'm talking to a friend and I go, why don't you invite so-and-so to join us? Oh, they're not going to like that. That's not what they like. We make these assumptions on what people are going to like, what they're not going to like. I have no control over whether or not anyone likes me or how they're going to respond to me or anything. All I have control in is what I'm going to put out there. And hopefully they're going to like it enough that they're going to gravitate towards it. But none of us have control over what, you walk down the aisle of a supermarket, and if there's a certain food stuff that you like, that's what you're going to take because you've experienced it. There's so much on those shelves that you will probably never in a lifetime even taste or be a part of because you haven't tasted it up to this point, unless you hear someone else talk about it. And when someone says, I just tried this new diet soda, you should try it. You may want to try it because a friend recommended it, or going to see a movie or a play or a concert because someone recommended it. But unless we recommend these things, a lot of people don't, because again, everyone's in their little bubbles.
I think you'll approve of this message. Something that I've started to do on the show more and more on the note of recommendations is I tell the person who's listening or watching, tell them, call somebody about this episode. Call them up or text them. You can text them, but tell them about it. And I always think if that person doesn't check out the episode, I'm actually okay with that. What I look at it as, it's kind of like, let's have coffee. When we say let's have coffee, we don't really mean coffee. We don't care if the person gets a sparkling mineral water or a tea. It's our way of saying, I would like to see you. I would like to talk to you. So if you're listening, if you're watching, call somebody and tell them about this episode.
Well, Paul, you and I are on the same page. The other thing that I do is when I reach out to someone or I speak to someone or I run into someone and they say, oh, I miss you. I always say, pick a date and a time and let's get together.
Right.
And my calendar is filled with those dates and times that people have reached out. And if I've already got something planned on that time, I don't say to them, oh, I'm not available on that date. I say, this is what I'm doing. Would you like to join me? Because I'm all about inclusion instead of exclusion.
Very good. Well, everybody out there, I want to include you in subscribing to Richard Skipper on YouTube. I'm going to show it here. I am a subscriber. Look it up on YouTube. Also, check out richardskipper.com. You'll know on your phone, it looks like that.
Yes.
And you'll turn the bell into, it'll say subscribe once you hit subscribe.
Thank you.
Absolutely. So, Richard, thank you so much. It's wonderful to see you in living color.
You too, and thank you for your patience today.
And thank you, because it takes two to do an interview.
Now, I want to say very quickly, I want everyone out there to go to your phone and the seventh name that pops up, reach out with a phone call, and then reach out to me. My email address is on richardskipper.com. Send me an email and tell me about your experience of calling that person, because it may be somebody you haven't spoken to in a long time. But just make a point every day of reaching out to somebody that you have not spoken to in a while.
Now, how do they find the seventh? Is it just randomly, or do they start from A?
Well, some people go alphabetically. Some people go to their Facebook page, and you'll see where it says, your friends, the seventh name that pops up. Or check your emails, and as you're going down, the seventh email of the person that you actually know, just reach out to that person.
1, 2, 3, 4.
Right. That's right. And let me know how it goes with you, Paul.
I will do that. Absolutely.
Yes,
well, Richard, wishing you a wonderful rest of the day.
Thank you. You too.
I'm going to run to dinner, but you have made my day better.
Thank you so much. You too.
All right.
Goodbye.
Bye-bye.
You know, the Paul Leslie Hour is made possible by people like you, listeners, viewers. Please go to thepaulleslie.com/support, and you'll know what to do when you're there. Thank you. Thank you, everyone who contributes. Performance of The Entertainer intro song by John Primorano. And of course, this is your announcer speaking. See you next time on the Paul Leslie Hour.